Hi, welcome back to Uncontested. My name is Chelsea Peace. I'm a transformational life coach, and I'm here with family law attorney Stacy Geiger. And we're having the conversations that most people in our fields don't really have. And we're doing it with you so that you can see the things that you can control in your high conflict divorce, which typically always points back to yourself. And this week we are having a really good conversation about what you do whenever you find yourself in a scenario comparing yourself to the new partner. So, Stacy, can you tell me what this looks like with a lot of your clients?
Right. So, as discussed, so that we made this abundantly clear, one of the top 3 reasons for divorce is infidelity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, this isn't just something that happens after we file for divorce. It happens before. It's one of the reasons we do file. So, now there's this other person, and it basically sparks anger and hatred and jealousy and a constant comparison, or looking at so many aspects of what did I do wrong, and it becomes self-hate. And across the board, we need to address all these problems because, first of all, it absolutely is going to hinder the divorce process.
Yeah.
Because we start focusing on the nitty gritty things that one person thinks matters, but it really doesn't matter. And it really is emotionally draining, and that much more because divorce itself is exhausting, and not just for the person. I mean, as attorneys, we get invested in your lives too.
Mm-hmm.
We want the best for our clients and everything that comes out of it. And we want to see you at the end of the day be healthy and happy and financially stable. And it's that much more difficult when the focus becomes a third party that isn't even one of the divorce parties, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
and you said something there that kind of sparked a memory in me is, yeah, there was another person inside my marriage for a while before I was ready to say I'm done, right? So there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of resentment, there's a lot of like, why are they doing this to me? By the time we make the decision to go ahead and say, like, I'm done, like, I deserve better, we now are looking at the legal process. And I saw something recently that really clicked for me. And if I had read this before I started my divorce process, gosh, I wonder if my healing journey would have gone so much faster. But it basically said a divorce is you get this, you get this, you get this. It's just a separation of things, right? And if I could have just pictured that at the beginning and say, like, things that I could get again, things that I could work for again, that sort of thing. And it's not about my emotions. Maybe I would have looked at it differently. I don't know. But that just really clicked for me recently. But anywho.
maybe it's one of the harder parts, right?
Yeah.
Because even if you can detach the emotions, when there's that third person sitting in the room metaphorically, well, now you don't want the other person to have, I don't know, the boat, because they're going to take her out on it.
Right.
Not you. That was our boat, so I want it because I don't want them to have it. Or this is I can't even think. This is my car. Sure, I have 2 cars, but if I give this car to him, he's going to give it to her, and now she's driving my car.
Yeah.
And you don't think, like,
there's so much pride involved. That's kind of what I see is, like, it's pride. And I remember being like that. Like, you definitely, there's waves of emotions that you're going through. But the sooner you can go, like, hey, listen, remember there could be little people watching, right? So that was always the one thing that could pull me back into I'm arguing over a squat rack. At the end of the day, Planet Fitness is up the street. It costs $25. You know what I'm saying? So that was an option. But what I had to get to the place of, and maybe this is something that our viewers could learn from, is, I was comparing myself to this other woman. And I even said to my ex before he moved out, like, you do realize that, like, I'm prettier than her, right? And that was a pride thing. But I was comparing myself to her when I really needed to step back and say, he is making a choice to do this. It doesn't mean I'm better. It doesn't mean she's better. It's like, I need to be okay with the fact that this is what is happening. And I had to focus back on me and say, like, I can't control what's happening. I can't put my hands on it. I can't control what's going on over there. And I can't sit there and scroll her social media all day and ask myself and pick myself apart. Why did he pick her over me?
So what's interesting is that's a huge part of not just when there's a third party. That's the entire divorce, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you, in general, if a person can step back and say, no matter what, this is happening today, so I need to move forward.
Yeah.
And I think if we could have a theme of all high conflict divorce, if just to note everybody, if you can start on that one space that says this is happening, then you're going to move forward a lot easier. I think a lot of women don't recognize this is happening. We get caught in the why.
Yeah.
And can't get over that hump. And, as you were saying, in your situation, you had kids. There's another layer.
Right.
But you get so frustrated and all of this is happening and there's another person and now I'm angry and it's affecting my kids and I don't know how to deal. Versus if we, and I'm not saying it never happens. I mean, it's very rare where somebody starts and says, okay, well, I'm going to deal with this. This is happening today.
Yeah. It takes a while. The little cog of life has to spin. Things have to happen. You get cut. It takes a minute. The scab, and sometimes that scab opens up again, right? And I was just thinking about that funny, my social media thing. I was cleaning my yard today, and I was like, oh, people are going to watch me rake my yard one more time. And I'm like, that's kind of like healing. You think you healed, and then something else comes back in and irritates it again. And it's a constant process. But you said it. We're all focused on why this, why that, why that. One of the things that I talk to my clients a lot about is we got to move from why to what. And then when we can put the what down on paper, now what would stop you from doing that? So I think about, like, if I'm comparing myself, and I'm just using this as an example and saying, like, she's skinnier than me. Well, if I think that, then that means I don't think that I am in the best physical health. What can I do about it? I can go for a walk every day after I eat dinner. Would that help me get a little closer to being a smaller version of myself if that's what I'm comparing? So that's kind of how I help women. Like, we talked a lot about therapy before, is why am I the way that I am? Coaching helps you go, well, yeah, that makes sense that I'm that way, but what can I do about it? And then apply those tactics.
And in these divorces, when you're in the thick of it, if you're sitting there and saying, what can I do to move forward? Mm-hmm. That's a lot better than, why is this happening? Why do I need to focus on this? You don't need to focus on this. What can you do?
Mm-hmm.
If you do want to use that information, because you certainly can, what can you use to make your life move forward? That's a different question, and that's a really good question. Because when you were saying let's divide assets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. At least in Florida, we have equitable distribution. Ideally, in a perfect world, you get half, he gets half, we move forward, and it's over. Mm-hmm. But when there's a third party, if your focus is that third party and you're really struggling to move forward, then maybe you put some energy into that. And in that energy, you're looking at finances. And you say, okay, here's money that was not spent on me. I'm not going to focus on being mad about it. I'm going to focus on recuperating it so that I can move forward.
Mm-hmm.
This is, how does it turn into a positive for me? Well, let me make that mine again.
Yeah.
It was taken from me. I'm going to get it back.
Absolutely. And that reminds me of another practice that really helped me through this process when I found myself in this exact scenario that we're talking about is, what am I grateful for now that I'm free?
That's a good one.
Remember, we talked about that. Like, you can give me my legal freedom, but what do I do with it when I have it? And I know there were good parts of my marriage. Clearly, I was heartbroken at the end of it. I loved that man. I loved the family that we built, but it's over. And so how can I look at it from a place of gratitude and say, these are the things that it taught me. These are the things that I now get to do that I didn't get to do before. Like, for an example, I get to laugh like an idiot. Okay, like bust out belly laugh, throw my head back, and no one's ever going to look at me and say, "Are you sure it's that funny?" Like,
Right.
those are some things that I think you've got to look at it with the good and the bad. Go back and say, am I grateful for the experience because it was a good experience at one point? What did I learn from the separation and how we got here? Because we said that cheating is one of the top reasons, but let's take some accountability as the wife in the situation, even if we were the ones that got cheated on. What did we do that potentially severed our relationship to get us to this point? Because sometimes we weren't the best spouses either. Like we talked about that before. What do you think about that?
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a lot of internal reflecting, but let's back up a second.
Go ahead.
One of the things that you said was interesting is that you couldn't laugh before, right?
Yeah.
And we've had couples that say, I wasn't allowed to sing in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, that's crazy to me.
I got goosebumps.
Because when you're with supposedly the person you're going to be with for the rest of your life, you should ideally be able to be yourself, regardless of who that is. Right? I mean, hair up, hair down, pajamas on, or dressed up. This is who I am. And like you couldn't laugh. If you can't sit in a car and sing at the top of your lungs, and my singing voice sounds a lot like my talking voice, so just imagine it's real good. Then maybe that's a sign that this isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, maybe you just sit back, and if you're trying to find some sort of healing with that third person, be like, well, now that person can't sing in the car.
Girl.
Maybe she can't sing at the top of her lungs.
It's like you're reading my mind. Oh my gosh. At this point, I look over and I go, you'll see, that's another conversation for another day. But you're exactly right? If that person that you were with, that you do have good memories with, and now it is over, okay, let's look at that. Let's analyze that relationship and really go, I liked this part. I wasn't a fan of that part. Ooh, and practicing gratitude is one of the requirements that I have for my clients. You talked about it when we first got in here today. 45 minutes before the world wakes up, you get your time.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the first things that I require for someone who works with me. And it's looking at the day and the week with gratitude, taking intentional time to look back on it with gratitude. And I would say look back on that relationship and say, in my next relationship, I'd really love to be able to sing in the car.
Absolutely. And you should. and I think we touched on this the last time when we said, one of the unfortunate pitfalls that we do see is when someone leaves a marriage because they were cheated on or they were treated poorly or whatever the case may be, and then they turn around and meet the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh no.
That happened to me.
It happens. And you see this and luckily you were able to come out of it. You recognized it in yourself and you moved on.
Yes.
But if you keep doing that, that's a problem. What really hurts is when there are kids involved.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're teaching them the same thing. And like you said, with gratitude, I think one of the things that gets lost in these high conflict divorces when people have kids, and it's probably one of the most unfortunate things, is that they lose the kid perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're so wrapped up, especially when there's a third person, in the anger and the hate. And how do you turn around and make sure that your kid or kids are not seeing this? It doesn't happen. And I think that we need to step back and find a place for that.
Yes.
Because when there are kids, that's a hard part for me. And I try to tell clients, I'm like, look, at the end of the day, you have 2 kids. So maybe, we don't focus on the fact that you couldn't sing in the car, but now you can sing in the car.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not tell your son or daughter, I'm so happy he's not here because now we can do that. Versus the sentence is, do you love this song? I love this song. Let's sing in the car.
Right.
Let's make everything a positive now instead of focusing on a negative. And I think that's what a lot of what you've come to realize, and now you do, is everything with you is gratitude and positivity versus focusing on the negative and what happened. why did it happen versus look at everything I'm doing to make it better now. And when there are kids in the room, it should be all about these are the good things that are going to happen. It's not, oh, look at all the bad that happened before.
Right. Right. And I like how we're talking about this because they go hand in hand. And I kind of want to stay here with reflection on our experience, and maybe we can go into that third party of child perspective into our next episode. With this one, it's looking at it and saying, I got to bring you back. I'm losing my train of thought. You said we will find the same person in the next person that we meet if we don't take this time. And I said, that happened to me,
Absolutely.
Right? I am sitting here, I've sworn off dating. I'm like, I don't want to date, especially with little kids around. I don't want to introduce people and I know that I'm going to cut them off the first time they have a red flag. So I don't bring them around my kids. But I've got a lot of new male friends in my life helping with my house and things like that. And so I'm thinking, I just met this person. They're so healed. They're so awesome. A year later, after just being friends, nothing ever happened, but bringing him around, we kind of built a really strong bond. The red flags were actually just crimson, like just a different shade. And I was like, oh, wait, back up. Thankfully, I've made that commitment to myself that I'm not going to. And I think that's something that a lot of women really need, or anybody in the divorce process. Don't go into the dating pool so fast. Take that time to do this, like we're talking about. Reflect on what did that relationship give you? What did it not give you? And what are you looking for in your next one? And know what your values are. Know what your standards are. A lot of times, and maybe you can help, I know like I got married very young. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm 35, I'm a completely different person than I was when I was 21, 22, when I first met my ex. So like, what would you say you see a lot of those people struggle with when those long marriages like that from a very young age?
And it's hard. It's harder with, like we were just talking about last time, these age gaps, right?
Yeah.
It is very different for somebody who's 20 years old from somebody who is 40 years old.
Yeah.
Right? Because now there's also this concern that the dating pool is smaller.
Ooh.
And, or I don't want somebody who is in this industry, or it becomes very narrow as we get on with time, right?
It's almost like we come from a place of lack. We think like we're damaged goods, right? Oh, I have kids, so now if I go out here, there's nobody who's going to want me. I think that's kind of where I see a lot of people go.
And a lot of just sheer desperation not to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that desperation absolutely is a driving factor, and it shouldn't be. And that's where you need time. Yeah. And people, it makes it so much harder for somebody who doesn't want to exercise that time to self-reflect and become a better person of themselves, by themselves, to themselves, and for others, than just to jump on the first person, literally and figuratively, that comes by.
Yeah. And I'll say this too, like you just said, like, take the time. And I'll tell you the first excuse, I'm going to tell you it's an excuse. The first excuse that I always get from clients when it comes to pouring back into themselves or doing anything for themselves is that they don't have time. And I think about, people who are like me, like carrying the majority of the parenting for a year and a half where I don't really have a break. But you can set your alarm for like 5 o'clock in the morning and do something before those kids are awake that would pour back into you. Like, there's so many different ways you can find the time. And I think that's important that you guys know that you deserve that time to invest in yourself, to get to know yourself, to reflect, to be grateful for your life. You will make time for what's important to you. And if healing is important to you and getting out of this space of being stuck in the past is important to you, then you've really got to dedicate that to yourself.
Yeah. And you can find the time, because if you're finding the time to jump onto somebody else's wagon, then that time can be for yourself to get better.
I'll tell you, every time I've stepped back from being so close to someone, I get more creative. I start finding, where do I want to make my life more beautiful? Like my projects and things like that. Now that I don't have someone consuming and worried about like, what are they doing and texting them all day and things like that, that energy that I was pushing towards someone else, trying to form a connection that clearly wasn't going to end up working out, I now get to pour that back into our home and like painting the wall purple and things like that. So that's also something else. That's exactly right.
Sure. And I don't think, just so that we can make it clear, I don't think we're saying not to date, because we're not, right? I mean, you can go out and meet people. I think the idea is don't jump back into creating the same old life that you had.
I am saying don't date. I genuinely am. No, I'm for real. And I wrote a book about it. And it's so important for me to make sure that people understand, like, you are grieving a whole version of you who was tied into a coupleship. You need to find yourself. You need to date yourself, because you clearly jumped into something that was misaligned if you can't sing in the car, if you can't
Right.
bust out laughing, if you can't wear what you want to wear. I would love to see where somebody splits up and they make a commitment to themselves. Like, give me 12 months. Give me 12 months of doing the really deep work on myself, dating myself. Go out to dinner. If somebody asks you out to dinner.
Well, that's what I meant.
Go out
I'm
to
sorry,
dinner.
that's what I meant by
But
dating.
I see so many people who leave a marriage and they're like, this is my boyfriend. And I'm like, whoa,
Sorry.
girl.
And I apologize. That's what I meant.
Okay.
Go out. Dating to me is going out to dinner.
Okay.
Not committing.
Oh, yeah. No,
So
I see
no
my
commitment.
people my
Right.
age, they just jump right in.
They do.
They like move in together. And I'm
Yes.
going, oh my gosh.
Instantly. Like before the divorce is finalized, they're married the next day. And what? I need you to take a minute to learn a lesson.
Yes.
Take a minute to look at what happened and say, what can I do differently? What can I do to make sure that my future does not look like my past?
Mm-hmm.
And how can I make my future that much better? Not just so that it doesn't repeat what happened, but that it's actually a growth for me.
Yeah.
Because we're at some point, you're a quarter of the way through your life, a halfway through the life, 3/4 when this happens. I mean, you have time. How do you make that so much better for yourself? And you're not going to do it hitching your star to some broken wagon a second time.
Oh my gosh. So the thing that I talk about a lot with my business is you're the director of your own life, right? So I'm going to take you, me and you, we're going to go grab some popcorn and we're going to go to the movies. And we're going to watch Stacy Geiger life on the big screen. And I asked them directly, and I'm like, so like when we go in here, are you going to cringe? Are you going to cover your eyes? Are you going to tell me not to watch? At what point are you going to turn to me and be like, this is where it gets good? Because that's what your divorce is offering you. That's what really locked in for me is I'll be damned if this is like this marriage was the best part of my life, because I've got so much time left. And if I actively choose the time that I have left to make sure that it feels great and it looks great and it's exactly what I've ever always wanted, then I've got to be the director of my own life and I've got to end scene. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's time for the next season.
Is that the part where you send her a thank you note? Thank you.
Yes. Oh, man.
Right? So that's to come full circle, right? That's where you've made the turn. You said, because of this instance, I have been able to create a whole new life.
Absolutely.
And make things better. And, yes, you don't want that to have happened, but because it did, you're not broken. You're moving forward and making a better life for you and your girls. And I think that would be a huge lesson. And if women going into these high conflict divorces saw this as, chapter end, but new chapter begins, the book's not over.
Oh, for sure.
Let's start there. Let's create something new. What do you want to do? What do you want the next 5-10 years to look like? And maybe we don't focus on this other woman, but
Focus on
where
what
did that
you
get
think-
me?
Yeah. And you said it, like, what do I want the next 5 to 10 years to look like? But I say there's a huge problem with our society of living in the future. We're constantly working towards that next promotion, that next stage of life. Like, I can't wait till they're out of diapers. I can't wait till they're potty trained. We're always looking forward to something. Yes, have goals, but what can I do today that would make today awesome? Because a beautiful life is made up of a bunch of really great todays.
It is. So I'll tell you, so my son, he's a giant Winnie the Pooh fan. And Winnie the Pooh's saying is, today is my favorite day. And if you can wake up and say, today's going to be my favorite day, then go have a great day.
Yeah.
And we don't focus on that other person. If you need to, just to make things work for you, then great. But if you're going to focus on somebody because of jealousy or rage or anger, today is not going to be a great day for you.
Yeah. And going back to kind of what we talked about last week of like, talk to your attorney about enforcing those boundaries to protect your peace, because when you start adopting this mindset of, I'm not going to let it bother me, I'm going to focus on what I can control. I know what I experienced was they shook the table a couple more times. Like, they saw that I was happy. They saw that I was moving forward. And it was like there were attempts to pull me out of that mentality. And you've got to remember the little ones that are watching. You've got to remember that life that you're building doesn't necessarily have to include that relationship that was in your past. You can make it a strictly business type of interaction. And it helps me to remember that if that was someone I was doing business with and they treated me that way, I would do the bare minimum when it came to exchanging my energy with that person. I would say, here's your money, or here's your responsibilities, and I'm out. And I just protect my peace.
So in that high conflict, we're looking at this. If they're assuming there's no children, this is a contract.
Yes.
So now let's make a list. Mine, yours. Maybe some of this should be more mine than yours because of XYZ. But let's make a list. If you just see a cloud of rage, that's not getting us to the goal line. That's just, I want everything because I'm mad. I want everything because he hurt me. These are not legal reasons in Florida to get everything.
Right.
You know, there's no Florida law against having an affair. I don't know about other states, but here it all comes down to dollars. So if there's money involved, then we move it over.
Yeah.
But look at it as a contract. Try to eliminate the anger. You can, if you want to sit on that anger, if it helps you grow, so be it for a minute. But if you're only going to focus on that, this divorce is going to take so much longer, and it's going to be so much more emotional than it should be. Whereas if you could step back and see it as a contract, a business transaction with someone you no longer like.
That's what I was saying in the beginning. If I had known that from the beginning, that might have helped me along the way. You just talked about something else too. Like, if sitting with that anger for a little while helps you to make yourself that much more stronger, you got to do it. I've made a video before where you're allowed to feel your emotions, right? You can be angry, you can be sad, you can be scared, you can be all of those things, but don't stay there. Set a timer. Give yourself, I'm only going to be mad about this for the next 20 minutes. I'm going to rage. Maybe I'll go outside and do some yard work or something. But then once this timer's done, can I find another emotion? Can I pick something else to focus on? And how can I make today my favorite day? You know, and that's where you're going to start being able to see the life that you're building is so much more it's so much more worth your investment than focusing on what's already happened. On our next episode, we're going to talk about how do we make sure that we're choosing ourselves, staying away from the conflict in our high conflict divorce as much as possible, while maintaining a lens of how are my children perceiving this and how am I protecting them in this situation emotionally. Stacy, was there anything else we wanted to add for this week?
Oh, I think we caught it. Just, don't let a third person define who you are.
Yeah. And don't let the divorce be the end of your best season. It was a season, but I know a lot of you guys probably like to binge watch Netflix series. What's your next season? And what's your divorce offering you whenever you think about it at the end of the day? What do you get to build now? And we'll catch you next week on the Uncontested podcast.